Welcome to this graduate program webinar session. My name is Sonia Steinberg. I'm the coordinator for graduate admissions here at John Cabot University. We're going to do a brief presentation of the program with the program director, followed by some Q&A with current students, and then we will leave the floor open for any questions that you guys may have. I will let my colleague and our students introduce themselves before we begin our presentation. So,
good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us. My name is Lila Yon. I am an associate professor of art history at John Cabot, and I have the great pleasure and privilege of directing the MA program. Lindsay, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure thing. Thank you for the cue. Hi, my name is Lindsay Maldari. I'm in my second year at the MA program at the moment, so I am in the process of beginning my thesis, and I'm originally from New York, and I'm very happy to now be here in Rome.
Bernat?
Hi, my name is, good evening. My name is Bernat Ratz, and I'm from Hungary. And I'm also a second year student, really enjoying the program.
Leah?
Hi, I'm Leah. I'm from India. I'm a first year, so this is my first semester. But I was an undergrad student at John Cabot, so I've been here for a while, and it's good.
Anna?
Hi, everyone. My name is Ana Laura. I am from Nicaragua in Latin America, and I'm also a second year student. So I'm in the process of writing my thesis. And just like Leah, I also did my undergrad at JCU. So I've also been here for a bit.
all right, so let me get started on the presentation, and Professor Young will talk you through our overview of the program, Masters in Art History.
By the way, I was bad before. I didn't say where I'm from. I originally grew up in the United States in Florida, but I've lived in Rome now for 25 years, so it's become home, and I feel very lucky in that regard. It's a wonderful place. Thank you so much, Sonia. Just for everyone, if the images of us get in the way, you can minimize them by clicking on the little gadgetry on the left side. So I'll leave that up to you. There's some text on the slides. First of all, welcome again to the webinar. I'm going to try to be brief because I'm going to leave plenty of time for the students to speak. They're incredibly kind to be with us this evening. They're very busy. And so thank you all very, very much. I also certainly want to leave time for questions and answers from those of you who are attending the webinar. But just to give you a sense of how the program works, what it's about, how it's structured, we've prepared a PowerPoint. Sonia, could you go to the next slide, please? First of all, who are we? Who is John Cabot University? What is John Cabot University? First, it's a wonderful institution. I've worked here for 15 years now. I love it. I feel very, very fortunate to teach here. John Cabot is an American liberal arts university in Trastevere. You see a beautiful view in this slide out over Trastevere from the roof terrace of one of our campuses. The university was founded in 1972, so this year we're celebrating our 50th anniversary, or this coming year rather. We are unusual in being accredited by the Middle States Commission on Higher Education, but in Italy. In other words, the institution exists only in Italy, but we have a very strong US accreditation. We're a fairly big institution as such institutions go. We have 1,400 undergraduate and graduate students. Together from 80 different countries. John Cabot is international in the truest sense of the word, and it's one of the things that makes it a great joy to teach here, and I think also to study here. We have 14 BA degrees and 1 MA, and that MA is the Art History MA. We were the first department, the Art History and Studio Art program. We're the first department to be asked to premiere an MA, and in this case, an MA in Art History. Just an overview of the program. The program has very specific trajectories. On the one hand, it is a generalist degree in the American tradition of MA degrees, a degree that seeks to guide students toward a professional mastery of the materials and methods of art history. In other words, it's a degree that's conceived of in a kind of professional trajectory that could lead directly into the world of work or onward to doctoral work. The emphasis in the program is on firsthand research. It's a very research-oriented program. And within that broader focus, we have two sub-focuses, let's say. One of them is visual cultures of Rome and the Mediterranean across time. We do talk about art outside of Rome, certainly, and outside of the Mediterranean. But our, let's say, center of gravity is Rome and the Mediterranean. And we also put a lot of emphasis on acquiring technical skills for primary research. In this photograph, for example, you see me and some students looking at a manuscript from the 1000s AD in a Roman library. These are things that we can do here that are very enriching of art historical study at the graduate level. Next slide, please. Now, how is the program structured? There are two, let's say, periods in the chronology of the degree. The first part is a foundation year, and this year can either be an academic year, fall and spring, or you can spread the foundation year out over fall, spring, and summer, the first fall, spring, and summer of the degree program. During the foundation year, you take 6 graduate level courses in the history of art and architecture for a total of 18 credit hours, and 2 methodological foundations courses, which I'll show you the titles of in a minute. There are also a few independent components, a cultural events reviews component in which you actually go out into Rome, into other places, to go to conferences, to lectures, to art openings, and you review them. It's a way to really immerse you in the immense richness of the environment here. We also have a foreign language reading knowledge exam. You need to pass an exam in either Italian or French or German to show that you can read one of those languages at the B2 level. This is a standard practice in American graduate programs in art history because of the need to read in more than one language for research. You have the first year of the program to pass that exam. It's best if you come into the program with some prior language training in one of those languages, but some people come in without and they manage to get through it anyway. We have various ways of fostering that, even though language instruction is not part of our MA program. There's a master's exam at the end of the foundation year, which 3 of the 4 students here have already taken and gotten through. It's a comprehensive exam that tests your knowledge of the image repertoire of the history of art, of methods, and of some other things. It consists of image identifications and essays. It's an all-day exam. It's a point of passage to the rest of the degree. Let's see, I need to minimize here so I can read. The summer term, if you compress all of your coursework into fall and spring for the foundation year, which you can do, in the summer you can do other things. You can either continue that coursework if you haven't completed it, the hours that I just showed you. You can also begin your thesis research. I know some of the students present have done that. You can do research-related travel, internships, supplementary language training, other professional educational activities. The summer, in other words, is a little bit more flexible than fall and spring when you're very much engaged in the coursework and the independent components. The courses are very, very rich in site visits and trips. This is one of the reasons that we wanted to invent an MA program in Rome. When we began this program in 2017, it was, and I think it may remain, the only MA in art history at an American accredited university in Rome. There are other MA programs in American accredited universities, but ours was the first in art history. And the reason that we invented it with great tender loving care, it was a real labor of love to design it, is that we really wanted people to be able to make use of the immense resources that are available here for the study of the history of art. That means that our courses are very site visit intensive. Clearly last year that was difficult because of the pandemic, but this year we are now fully operational and out in the city, visiting museums, sites, and going on trips. These are some of the trips we've done in the past. Some of them are regular recurring trips. Others depend on specific courses. In Rome, the site visits are innumerable, so we would be here until midnight if I were to list them all, but they go from Nero's Golden House all the way to the Museum of the Arts of the 21st Century and everything in between that you can imagine. We also go out of town. I just took a group of students to the beautiful city of Todi in Umbria to look at manuscripts for a research project. And we did some site visiting as well outside of the library. We also go to other places in Umbria, Perugia, Assisi, Orvieto. Professor Corrado, who you see here on the right side of this slide, Crispin Corrado, when she teaches her Mediterranean mural painting course, which we'll be doing this spring, does a field trip to Crete, Santorini, and Athens. And here is a group of students, including Professor Corrado, and then in the white coat, Professor Inge Hansen, one of our other classicists, in Santorini. It was a magical trip. I went with them and I was really blown away by the beauty of it and by the interest for art history. Palermo and Monreale, sites that are very, very important for the study of medieval art, are part of the course of one of our professors, Silvia Armando, who teaches medieval Sicily. Pompeii and Naples, as part of the Mediterranean murals painting course. Tivoli, the Sabine, et cetera, I could keep going. We try again to integrate site visits as much as possible into the program. Now, after you've completed the foundation year, the courses, the coursework of the foundation year, the 3 independent components, including the master's exam, you then go on to the thesis semester, and this is a real culmination of the degree. During the thesis semester, this is normally the second fall of your time in the degree program, you write a master's thesis. There is an experience that accompanies that, the thesis colloquium. I call it group therapy for thesis writers, but it's a lot more than that. And you also do an art historical professional experience in the form of either a teaching or research assistantship at JCU. And 3 of the 4 students who are with us today are doing those right now. Maybe you can tell us about yours a bit during the Q&A session. Or it can take the form of a formal internship with a museum, gallery, or foundation. John Cabot has a very, very active career services center that assists with, let's say, the interface with these institutions. Next slide, please. Now, I want to give you a sense of some of the course offerings, because that's what I would want to know if I were looking at a program, a graduate program. One of the main things I'd want to know. These are the required courses. Case Studies in Art Historical Practice is a readings course with a very, very intense site visit component. It's a course in reading really up-to-date art historical literature and analyzing the methods that are used in that literature. The Practicum in Art Historical Research and Problem Solving is a very practical methods course where you actually learn to use archival sources, the primary record, and so forth to do literally groundbreaking research on things about which there is practically no secondary literature. The thesis and thesis colloquium I've already talked about. Theses, by the way, tend to come out of your coursework and seminars. A lot of our courses are research seminars. They're research intensive experiences. And one of the purposes behind them is to help you get a kind of breadth of research experience that allows you then to develop one of those research projects into something that could become an article in a professional journal, an MA thesis, in other words. The art historical professional experience is also required, and what you do there will vary very much depending on your interests. We have 2 professors who actually assist you in identifying an experience that's consonant with your interests as an art historian in training. Next slide, please. These are just some sample titles of courses and seminars that we've run in the past. or are currently running. A lot of them are repeated. They come up again. Some of them are one-off things, but they give you a sense of what kind of institution we are and the great variety of coursework that we offer. Our faculty, by the way, is not specialized in one specific period. We are specialists in each of us in a different period. And for that reason, we have an immense variety of coursework that we have done in the past. Because the program is fairly small, we have really usually 5 to 6 foundation year courses every semester. So this full list of courses doesn't run every semester. It's a sampler. Just a few titles: Public and Private Space in Ancient Rome. I've already mentioned the mural painting course, Ancient Portraiture, Illuminated Manuscripts. That's the course that we went to Umbria for a few days ago. Saints and Relics in Medieval Rome and Italy. 2 of the students who are with us right now are writing theses that came out of that course. Material and Visual Culture in Medieval Sicily, the course I mentioned before. The Transcendental Page, Manuscripts for Religion and Magic. A course that we're about to have for the first time with Professor Karen Georgi, Rome Between the Covers, 19th century guidebooks in the Eternal City, Art of the Eternal City. 19th century Rome is often forgotten about in art history courses, but it's very interesting. And we have a professor who's really specialized in teaching that period. We've had a lot of theses come out of her courses. Here's some others. Classicism from Renaissance to Contemporary Art. I think we may have 3 or 4 theses that people are working on right now that came out of that seminar. Grottos and Grottesche, Rediscovering the Antique. Villas and Palaces in Renaissance and Baroque Rome. The Italian Renaissance Art, The Dark Side. That's a very fun course with a very fun professor named Carolyn Smith. The Erotic Renaissance is another of Professor Smith's seminars. Italian Art 1909 to 1979, taught by a super specialist, Sarah Linford. Waters of Rome, taught by one of our archaeologists, Jens Köhler. And then Fabricating Rome, which is actually the course that this photograph is pertinent to. The students you see sitting here, who include Leah, who's with us this evening, were actually helping with a project at the Spanish Academy, which is very near John Cabot, up on the Janiculum. And here they are sitting on the steps of, you may recognize it, Bramante's Tempietto, one of the great works of Renaissance architecture in all the world. Next slide, please. Now, who are we, the faculty? First of all, we are first and foremost professors from the Department of Art History and Studio Art at John Cabot. We come from diverse national backgrounds and hold PhDs and other advanced degrees in art history and archaeology. Nearly everyone who teaches for the MA holds a PhD, pretty much. One thing that unites us is that even though we're specialized in different periods and subject matters, we all have a long experience of Rome, of Italy, and of art historical inquiry. We don't just sort of parachute in. We really know the city and know its resources in a deep way, because most of us has been here 20 or 30 years. If you'd like to look more at our bios, you can go to that website. Most of us also have academia.edu pages, which you can look at to see some of our research. This is Professor Inge Hansen, who's a specialist in ancient Roman portraiture, among other things, teaching some students in the Roman National Museum. Next slide, please. Now, what can you do with this degree? First of all, graduate education is about becoming a stronger thinker before it's about getting a job. But it's also about getting a job, or at least increasing one's professional potential in a serious way. Art historical careers are certainly what we had in mind when we designed the degree, and we have students who are going on to them now that we have a few years under our belts with graduates, several classes of graduates now out in the world. As I mentioned before, we also conceive of the degree as preparation for PhD level study, and we have several students who are now in PhD programs at different universities, including the University of Chicago, the University of Bath in England, a special university for contemporary art in Lucca here in Italy, and more. Continuing education for teachers, teachers of art history, classical studies who want to improve their knowledge of art history in an on-site way, and career enhancement for professionals in different fields that may not be art history. Let me give you an example. One of our very first students was actually a chef, a professional chef, She had a degree in, I'm forgetting what, I think history. And she came to us because she wanted to improve her knowledge of art and of Italy and so forth. She ended up doing a thesis on food history and specifically on the frutta martorana, the beautiful sculptures of marzipan that are made in Sicily and that are part of Sicilian culture and have been for a very long time. She's just published her thesis, or an article that was written as part of her, out of her thesis, let's say, in a book by Cambridge University Press. So our graduates are going on to do wonderful things. With this slide, I can tell you about 3 people. This is Madison Pearson, who is now the Public History Fellow at, oh goodness, I'm forgetting which university right now. Oh, help, at a university in the Midwest. She's actually gotten a fellowship to do public history to help students with their research, to help with the archive at the university and other aspects. And then Chris Mandel, who's here on the left, photographing a manuscript fragment. This is the Todi trip from a couple of years ago, is now directing a museum in California, a local history museum at Los Calaveras. He has a wonderful job, fresh out of graduate study. Matt Beckman, I believe, is going into an archival program to become an archivist. And actually, Kristen here is, she transferred to another university and I think is going on to do doctoral work. She spent a semester with us and then decided to go back to the US. So people do different things, but they're all interesting. Okay, I think I'm almost done. One more slide. If you would like to contact us, here's contact information. You can email Sonia at Graduate Admissions. You can look at our website. We're about to upgrade the website, but the information that I've given you now is spelled out there. You can certainly access it. It may look a little bit better in a month or so, but the information is all there, and we look forward to hearing from you. Okay, that's the end of my quick presentation. I'd like now to turn the floor back over to Sonia.
Well, thank you, Professor Young, for a wonderful overview of the program. And as we already introduced to you, we have several of our current students here participating with us today. So I am going to ask you some questions to help also guide our participants into making, the best decision with regards to their future studies. So feel free to answer as you feel fit. My first question to you is why choose John Cabot for your graduate studies, and also what do you think makes this particular MA program unique? Who would like to? Anna.
I can answer. So I feel same as Leah, we're kind of in a unique position because we did the undergrad at John Cabot. But I think also one of the reasons why we decided to stay is because learning is not confined to the classroom when it comes to art history. You just have to step out and walk around the city, and it's kind of like being in a sort of class because there's so much to do, there's so much to see. There are wonderful resources all over the city, and on the more institutional level, we are very lucky to have a great faculty, professors that are always available to help, to guide us through our research, through anything that we might need. And the university in general is very helpful as well. So when it comes to art history, this program is almost perfect. I mean, it's the perfect location. It has great faculty, great resources, and it's incredibly unique. So I would definitely recommend it to anyone.
Going off of that,
yeah.
Yes, I just want to reiterate because yes, the advantages of studying in Rome are so many. But something that's really increasingly struck me about this program, and Professor Jan touched on this, is just how varied the faculty is in terms of their interests. I know that from undergrad, I came from a program which was primarily centered on 2 professors. They were so available and I owe them so very much, but it's been so lovely to see so many people truly deep into their focus, teaching the material that they are so very familiar with. It's just very much a privilege. And actually in the case studies course as well, being taught in our first fall here being taught by all these different faculty. You get a sense of everybody personality wise, what their interests are, and it really just, I don't know, that was one of the experiences that most stood out to me with the program.
I would also add that other than these points, the resources, we have several truly fascinating collections and libraries in Rome, historic libraries, and also in the area of Rome. And I think other than the on-site classes and the monuments, we also have this aspect of deep research in several languages, really interesting places. So I think that also adds to that.
Yeah, I think I totally agree with that, because the access also as a master's student that you have to these resources changes pretty drastically compared to if you were an undergrad. So it's sort of like this crystallization of so many different avenues that are really open to you and very available.
Great, wonderful.
Can I add something really quickly? I just wanted to let everyone know that Lindsay, Bernat, Leah, and Ana Laura just got these questions today. This is totally unscripted, and I'm gratified to hear what you said. It's beautiful to know that you're having those experiences. Just wanted to say that.
And Lindsay, you mentioned faculty in your answer. So actually one of my questions was as well, how do you guys feel like faculty-student interactions are like? How available do you find our professors to be? Do you feel, that you can go to them and ask questions, mentored, and so forth?
I can take that one since I had mentioned the faculty earlier. So available. Truly, I've been very fortunate in my life to have close mentorship, and that has only continued and amplified here in my time at John Cabot. For example, I work a lot with Professor Sarah Linford in terms of her focus. She focuses on modern and contemporary, which is what I've studied. So whether it be I'm TAing a course with her, she's also my thesis mentor. And not just her other faculty. I mean, I really do feel that they make themselves so available, not just within the classroom, outside of the classroom. They want to meet you where you're at in terms of your research interests and really help you grow. Absolutely.
Yeah, sorry, Leah. No,
No.
I totally agree with Lindsay. One of the things that makes studying at JCU, at least as a master's student, so satisfying and also like a positive experience is the relationship that you can end up having with faculty. And you're not just like another student that they have to answer an email to, or that they have to meet every 2 weeks. Like you get to know them, and they get to know you, and they care about you, and they try to make the process as pleasant as possible. And for example, now that I'm almost done with the MA, one of the things that I'm going to miss the most is pretty much those relationships with those professors. And not because I won't have them afterwards, but you definitely feel like you're someone that matters. You're not just another student. So faculty really does make a difference, and you'll never be alone.
Can I just add something there? So I didn't want to cut anyone off. One thing that I love doing as a professor is continuing those relationships after people have left. To me, that's a sacred duty. I still am in touch with my dissertation advisor, and I got my PhD decades ago, and he's still my mentor. And to me, that it's one of the most beautiful parts of being an academe. And basically, I'm always writing letters for students who are, off doing their things, going to PhD programs, getting jobs and whatnot. And it's, let's just say that I think I'm speaking for the full faculty, that those sorts of relationships are really important to us too. I think on our end, it's one of the distinguishing parts of the degree. And it's one of the things that as director, I can see making it work even better than we ever expected. And a pleasure for us. People beg me to teach. My colleagues come to me and say, can I please teach for the MA? Because they want to have these relationships with the students at that high level, at the research level. Okay, let me be quiet.
I wanted to touch on the point that Lindsay made about research interests because, you know, this whole course is geared towards the Mediterranean. My interests don't always fit that, but I've never felt overlooked. I always find, like, all my professors have always found a way to meet me halfway. For example, I'm not a classicist, and oh, so loud here, I'm so sorry. I'm not a classicist, but I'm taking an ancient class with Professor Hansen right now. And because food is one of my interests, my research paper is going to be on dining spaces and tricliniums. And it's really exciting. Oh my God, I'm just going to.
So you get to
And
experience a little bit of Rome in action right now. Sorry, go ahead.
I just wanted to add that I completely agree with these points, but I would also like to point out the fact that I'm really amazed by the passion and dedication of the professors, and that I guess really motivates me with my own work. And yeah, they're like in the interactions with them are just fantastic.
Wonderful. So thank
Sorry,
you.
Sonia, can I chime in just 1 second? What Leah said, I just wanted to add something onto that. I too have sirens outside here, by the way. And that is, since we do have students from all over the world, even though we on the faculty tend to focus, pardon me, on this part of the world, we do everything that we can, pardon me, to help students to accommodate those interests in whatever ways we can. I'll give you an example. We have a student from Central Africa right now, actually not the Central African Republic, but from South Sudan. And we've explored together the relationships between that part of the world and this part of the world. And frankly, before we began this research together, I didn't know that there were any. I was never imagining how dense the relationships are. And we have information that is going to, I think, permit us to even publish something jointly about these relationships. It's really invigorating for the faculty when students come to us with interests that are not necessarily those that we imagine, because then we have to enlarge our intellects and go out and explore with the students and foster their own explorations.
Well, I see actually a question in the Q&A section. So just to let our attendees know, we'll leave the floor open to questions as soon as we're done with this part of it. So if you have any questions, feel free to write them there, and then I will go over them at the end of the presentation. So just kind of for more practical purposes, would any of you like to just describe what, you know, your typical class size is? Where do they generally meet? What the workload is like? What your schedules are like, just to give an idea, you know, of what a typical week, for example, might look like coursework wise. And
I can go. Well, it obviously depends on the classes that you choose. But if you end up choosing classes that heavily rely on on-site visits, for example, a class that I took last semester with Professor Currado was a topography of ancient Rome. We pretty much had the entire, well, besides the last part because of the pandemic, but we had the entire part outside, and every single week we would go to a different site. So we were barely even in the classroom. Same thing with Professor Armando's course on medieval Sicily. At the end of the towards the end of the semester, there is a weekend trip to Sicily in which you can actually get to see the monuments in person. So it pretty much depends. But if you do not, like, if you either meet in the classroom or you have on-site visits. And in regards to scheduling, it depends on how you choose it, but it's pretty manageable, and it works. So.
Yeah, to touch on some of the logistical factors, because yeah, the class sizes are always very small, and that's always very important for me, because I mean, we're talking about those, you know, professor-student relationships, and that helps a great deal in that regard. And in terms of scheduling too, it is what you want to make of it. So for example, because I didn't take any summer courses, but, for example, either in the fall or the spring, I could have taken, 3 courses instead of 4 and had a course in the summer. There were definitely times when I was in the 4 course load that I was wishing perhaps I had done that, but it's up to you. It is what you will, make of it. And yeah, I'll leave it there.
And I think we also have great discussions. I really like the discussions that happen after a presentation or regarding a topic. I think that is really fascinating in our classes.
Great. As far as the professional experience, some of you have already started it, some of you haven't. Oh, Laila, sorry.
Yeah, just really quickly, one thing that I wanted to emphasize is that our courses are of 2 types. We have what we call topics courses. This is for the foundation year. And those courses they have more lectures, they may have exams, they have different formats. There are also research seminars, and you're required to take a minimum number of research seminars, at least 3 in the course of your degree, and they're almost entirely student driven in the sense that, as Bernat mentioned, students present and then we discuss their presentations. And that's really the content of the course. And it's fascinating. You learn so much. I learned so much doing that. There was one other thing I wanted to say, let's see, Tom. Oh yeah. An important element of the degree that wasn't in the PowerPoint is that you are required actually to complete a chronological distribution requirement in choosing your courses. So you do need to take 1 course in an ancient topic, 1 in a late antique or medieval topic, 1 in a Renaissance or Baroque topic or 18th century, and then in another in 19th to 21st century. It may be 19th or maybe 21st century, they vary, but you do have to give yourself an experience across the chronological spectrum to help fill out your, not only your knowledge of the history of art, but also your methodological potential, because each chronological period has its own problems, its own methods, and so forth. And the discussions that come out of those are, no matter what chronological period you're focusing on, are usually really rich and one of the great parts of the program.
Thank you, Professor Young. So as we mentioned, the professional experience component is an important component of the final semester of the program. So again, some of you have started already, some of you have not yet, you're still in your first year, but can you talk a little bit about the experience that you already started or what you plan on doing for this component?
I'm doing a teaching assistantship, and it's truly fascinating. The course is about the medieval monuments of the city of Rome, and it's a small class, but I really enjoy preparing for the classes and kind of creating again a type of discussion with the students, and it's really interesting to see a class from this other perspective, and it has taught me a lot already, even though we are at the beginning of this experience.
I'm also doing a teaching assistantship as well. I mentioned it before with Professor Sarah Linford, and it's actually in a course that I took at the MA level in the fall and is now being taught at the undergraduate level. And for me, given that I would like to become an art history professor, that is my professional goal. So to be able to have the chance to teach alongside a professor that I know and that I respect, and especially having taken the course at the MA level, it gives a much better sense for how a professor crafts and constructs a course and all of the dynamics that go into that. So it's been an incredible, I mean, it's only a few weeks in and it's already been an immensely useful experience for me.
I'm doing a research assistantship with Professor Salvadori, who's one of our medieval professors. And it's a pretty funny project that we sort of have been talking about for a few semesters now. And it consists of building up an image bank of gender in the Middle Ages. So yeah, so we're doing that. We're building up images, bibliography. We're putting it all in categories, and it's incredibly fun. So yeah, that's what I'm doing.
It's also going to be incredibly useful because gender in the Middle Ages is something people have talked about for decades now, but there is no real repository, kind of across the board repository of images that are pertinent to the topic. And since it's a research interest of Professor Salvadori, having great students work with her to build this up is going to provide a tool not only for their research, but potentially for other people's research as well. So I'm really happy that that's happening.
I should add, actually, so this webinar is one in a series of webinars that we're going to be doing over the course of the coming months, and we have an upcoming one on November 16th, which will also focus on current students as well as program alumni. So you will get some more insight if you're interested, then also on current professional experiences, as well as what some of our students have gone on to do after graduation. So one last question, what would you say for somebody who's applying for this program, what would you say are some of the most important qualities or experiences that they can bring to it, as well as any general advice that you might want to share with prospective applicants?
I think I can answer this. I feel like the methods of all of the professors are very contemporary, even if they're classicists in terms of being very up to date. They keep up with their field. And I think a danger is to come into the program with a preconceived notion of what art history is and what the various periods signify and what should be expected in terms of methodology. And we have a methodology course that helps really break that down, so it's not unapproachable. But I think that you need to be open-minded and come into it knowing that your ideas of some things might change.
I think other than, of course, preparing relevant skills such as research skills, critical reading skills, and the capability of reflecting critically on what you study, I think other than that, you need to formulate a form of love for the history of art. And that is, I think that it will happen throughout the program, but building that is a really interesting process, and it's a really enjoyable one.
Professor Jan, do you have any advice for any applicants that are considering?
I do, actually. First of all, we accept people who have had a minimum of 12 credit hours in art history. If you have not taken 12 credit hours in art history, you can have a degree in another field. You don't have to have a degree in art history. You do need to have a BA or a bachelor's degree of some sort with at least 12 credit hours of art history. If you haven't completed those credit hours and you would like to apply to the program, take some art history. We certainly have had people who have done that. They've wanted to come to the program, but maybe they'd only had 1 or 2 art history courses, and they went and filled out their range of art history courses before they came to us for at least 12 credit hours. Another thing that I think will serve people very, very well before they come into the program is doing some language training. It used to be when I was young, here I'm going to sound like the old person that I am, in humanities programs in the United States, you were pretty much required to do some foreign language training. Everyone had to take Spanish or French or Italian or Russian or something, German, and so forth. Now it's less common. If you're in the US, it may be more common in Europe. I'm not even sure anymore, but if you have not yet gotten to a point in your language studies where you can read a basic text in French or Italian, then do some study of your own. We actually have some materials that we can share with you. There's a great online manual for learning to read Italian, for example, and it's completely free. If anyone's interested in that, I'll pass the information along to Sonia, and you can work with it on your own. Some students come into the program a little freaked out saying, how am I going to pass the language exam? I've never had the language. They all do. They all get through it eventually. You just need to read the language. You don't need to speak it, because the point is to be able to read a text for research. So I would not put that language study off until you get here. I would begin that well in advance. And it will save you, it'll allow you to focus more on your art historical studies once you're here and make use of that language skill. Don't let that dissuade you from applying, because again, people thus far have managed to get through that requirement and been the better for it and happy about it. Other than that, I would say, look at the program, see if you think it's right for you. If it coincides with your interests, and read about Rome. We will have a package of material to send to people who apply to and get into the program this year before they matriculate, so that we'll have some advanced readings that we recommend to them. But read about Rome to see if it's a place that you would like to spend time if you don't know the city well. And other than that, I'm not sure what else to say. I'm just delighted you're all here with us today.
Yeah, absolutely. And this has been a really lovely conversation. So thank you all for answering my questions. And I would like to leave the floor open to our attendees. If you have any questions, feel free to type them in and I can go over them. If you have any questions for me as far as admissions is concerned, Professor Yan for the program, questions in general about the program, or for any of our current students. I do see a question that I can probably answer about scholarships. So all successful applicants are automatically evaluated for financial aid. And we do offer a variety of grants in the form of both full tuition grants. Usually there is one or two of them available, as well as a variety of partial tuition grants. So again, if you are accepted, then you will be automatically evaluated for financial aid. We also do participate in the Title IV federal direct loan programs for US citizens as well as permanent residents of the US. So we accept the FAFSA. So I will actually be doing another session on October 19th, specifically about the application process, and I will cover also financial aid aspect of it as well.
Sonia, can I add something to what I said before?
Sure, yeah.
One really important element of the application is your writing sample. We really want to see that you write, that you can write well. That's very important to us, and it will help a great deal to see that you also know how to cite sources in an academic way. That helps, let's say, in our consideration of an application. We give quite a lot of weight to that. So you want to submit a strong writing sample.
I see another question about the GRE requirement. And I think this is mentioned on the website. The GRE results are optional, so it is not a requirement. You may apply, especially we understand with the pandemic. It's been harder for students to do those, but for students who do submit the GRE results, that's used as an additional indicator in our evaluation of financial aid. I do believe the GREs actually now can be taken from home. They've implemented this option as a result of the pandemic, but again, it's optional. It is not mandatory. I don't know if Professor Young, you want to add anything to this, or?
No, it really is optional, and we're, just to be frank with everyone, we're considering phasing it out. We haven't done it yet, but because we get applicants from so many different countries where the GRE is not a standard part of applying to graduate school, we may eventually not even ask for it anymore. For now, it can be useful to us if you get a very high score on the GRE. For example, that would be one indicator to us that you are probably you have a strong aptitude for graduate study that would be, it would, let's say, give us one more favorable element in considering you for admission and financial aid.
Any other questions? I believe our attendees are all muted, so I think you can raise your hand if you want to also.
I see some in the chat.
Oh, yeah, you're right. There's two
yeah.
of them. Yeah. Yeah, go ahead, Professor Young, if you want
Okay.
to.
How does this MA in Art History compare to other similar programs offered elsewhere in the world, particularly in terms of course content and program reputation? Does a graduate of this program have knowledge and understanding of the full historical and geographic sweep of art, or mainly of the history of art in this region of the world? I understand that you work hard to accommodate divergent interests when it comes to the thesis, but is the content of the core courses broad enough to give students a knowledge of the art of France, Germany, North America, for example? For the MA exam, and I am answering this question directly, we expect you to prepare your, for example, the section on image identifications to show that you do have some command of the art of other countries. Everyone with an MA in art history, for example, should know the Sainte-Chapelle in Paris, just one example of many. And we actually have a list of images that we require you to know and to know something about. That is how the MA worked where I studied at the University of North Carolina in Chapel Hill. But our coursework does not tend to focus on France, Germany, North America, example, et cetera. It does tend to focus on Rome and the Mediterranean in a year, a foundation year, in which you're going deep into research topics. You can't cover everything. And so what we expect of students is for them to do some compensating on their own for filling in gaps in a kind of general way. That was what I had to do in graduate school. I certainly didn't have a course in every country and every area, but I was expected to know something about the art of those countries and areas. But again, it's a kind of filling in of the big gaps that we ask you to do on your own as one of the independent components. I'm not sure that fully answered all of these. Okay, let's go back. How does it compare with similar programs offered elsewhere in the world? I'm not sure we're the right people to answer that. I can certainly say that in looking at other MA programs in the history of art, I perceive that we compare very favorably. Particularly in terms of the things that the students present this evening have said about student-professor interaction, professor qualifications, specialization, and so forth. The resources that are available, all of these things compare very, very favorably, and in some ways very much in our favor in that we have access to things here in Rome that you would not have access to if you were anywhere else, literally. Let's see, reputation, the program is still young. We started in 2017, so we've really only had 3 graduating classes at this point. They are beginning to do very well. In other words, they're getting jobs, they're getting into PhD programs. I perceive that another 3 or 4 years down the road, we're going to see a lot of that sort of thing happening, even more and more, and the reputation of the program rising and rising and rising. Does a graduate of this program have the knowledge and, okay, we've already sort of talked about that. The full sweep of art history, you know, that's asking a lot, obviously, but we'd like for you, obviously, to have a kind of general basis that would permit you, this is my personal evaluation, to teach a basic course in a survey course in the history of art. And that's part of the point of the MA exam. Lindsay, did you want to chime in?
Yes, I just wanted to add something about the sort of the question about the geographic component in terms of learning about from other parts of the world, because it is definitely true that in our coursework, it does tend to, you know, center and focus around the Mediterranean where we ourselves are. But for example, in a class that I was taking on imperial portraiture, a friend of mine was doing a project related not to, you know, imperial portraiture in the city of Rome, but actually in as very far-reaching Roman provinces, for example. And as well, a friend of mine at the thesis level at the moment, you know, she's working on an object that was in a Roman museum at the Maxi, but it's done by a Turkish artist. So she is doing a very deep dive into this. So it's, and so just to say that, you know, in your own thesis, and also in the research projects that you do in the courses, the professors will meet you where you are at and where your research interests lie. And if that's outside of the Mediterranean, you will be able to find those ties and work with them for sure.
Yeah, can I add something to that as well? While it's true that a lot of the classes are focused on pretty much Rome and the Mediterranean, if you end up taking certain classes, for example, the classicism class with Professor Linford, odds are that you're actually going to end up also delving into a bit of the art of France or of England. For example, in that class, I really wanted to write a paper on something that I felt connected to. And I ended up writing a paper on one of the Royal Academies in Mexico. So even though it was a classicism class, mostly focused in Rome and Europe, I was still able to delve into the influence of classicism in Mexico. And I think the same can apply for other classes that sometimes move a bit north. So yeah, you might not have this immense geographical grasp of the entirety of, I don't know, maybe Europe or the world, but you definitely go beyond the borders of Italy.
Thank you all very much for that. I had a wonderful experience yesterday in my manuscripts course. We were just sort of going around on the internet looking at manuscript facsimiles, and I happened to open one that was bilingual in Arabic and I'm sorry, not Aramaic, Arabic, and the classical language of Ethiopia, Amharic. And one of my students could read them, could read the languages, and she may end up working on that manuscript. And it's not from Rome, but it's part of the, let's say, the purview of the course, that object could certainly be an object of research. So we are very flexible in that regard. I see another question. I have a bachelor degree in journalism in Brazil. I had 1 semester of art history. Is that enough to be accepted? What you would need to do, this actually may be a better question for Sonia, is if you submit your transcripts, our admissions department office can actually evaluate the credit hours that you've had in Brazil. They may be slightly different from them in the US system, and tell you whether you've had enough art history. If it's just one course that was, say, 3 hours a week, that's not enough, because that would be the equivalent of one of our courses. You really need the equivalent of what in the American system would typically be 4 courses that meet 3 hours a week for 14 weeks. That's how we define a 3 credit hour course. But again, if you send your the documentation of your degree as part of your application to our admissions office, they can actually evaluate the equivalencies and tell you whether you need more courses. Certainly having a degree in journalism is fine. We've had students come to us with degrees in journalism in the past and do very well. They had had the 12 hours of art history before they came, but the degree was in a different subject matter.
Yeah, so feel free to send me, you can send an unofficial transcript. We just need to see kind of all the courses that you've completed. You can send that to graduate admissions at johncabot.edu, and then we can do an initial evaluation and let you know, if you meet the requirement, or if you're sure, give you advice on perhaps what courses you could take to, meet the requirement, and then apply at a future time. So. All right, I don't see any more questions, which is a good sign. It means that we've been pretty exhaustive in our overview of the program. So I would like to thank our panelists. Thank you so much for being here today and sharing your experiences with us and answering our questions. Thank you to our attendees as well, of course, for participating in this webinar. Again, if you have any questions, please write to me at graduateadmissions@johncabot.edu. And thank you, Professor Jan, for being here today and just giving us an overview of the program and answering a lot of our questions as well. So again, as I mentioned, this is one in a series of webinars that we're going to be doing over the next few months. So if you go to our website, and you go to the graduate pages of our website, you will find a link at the bottom through which you can register for the next upcoming one. They all kind of have a different theme. So the one on the next upcoming one is, I think, October, I forget exactly what date. But it will be, yeah, sorry, October 19th will be about the whole application process. So I will give you more information on how to apply financially and all of that. And then, as I mentioned earlier, we have one coming up also on November 16th with current students and alumni sharing their experiences. So that will also give you an opportunity to ask more questions. And then a couple of sessions after that as well. So if you are available and interested, by all means, please sign up for any of those. All right.
Sonia, thank you so much, and thank you to the student participants. I'm so grateful to you all, and thank you to the attendees. Immense gratitude.
Yeah. All right. I wish you all a wonderful rest of your evening or rest of your day, depending on where you're at, and hopefully we'll see you, some of you here on campus really soon.
Good luck, Bernard.
Good luck, Bernat.
When Renata's
you.
giving a
Thank
talk
you.
this evening, and that's where I'm headed next, and I suppose Bernat is as well.
Yes, I am. See you there.
Take care, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.